Have you ever found yourself talking to a woman and wondering, is she just being friendly? Or is she actually waiting for me to make a move? If you've ever been in that situation, trust me, you're not alone. In fact, I think almost every man has experienced it at some point. You enjoy talking to her. She seems comfortable around you. Sometimes she even laughs at your jokes that aren't really that funny. And yet you're still asking yourself, what if I'm reading the signs all wrong? Because let's be honest, nobody wants to make a move and end up feeling embarrassed. At the same time, nobody wants to miss an opportunity because they were too afraid to act. So, how do you know the difference? How do you tell when a woman is simply being kind and when she's quietly hoping you'll take the next step? Now, before we go any further, let me say something that's really important. No single sign can tell you with 100% certainty that someone is romantically interested. People are different. Some women are naturally friendly, others are naturally shy. That's why it's never a good idea to rely on just one sign. Instead, pay attention to a pattern. When several of these signs show up consistently, that's when they begin to mean something. So today, we're going to talk about 7 signs that may suggest she's waiting for you to make the first move. Some of them are obvious, others are surprisingly easy to miss. And I have a feeling that by the end of this discussion, you might start looking at some of your past conversations a little differently. So let's start with the first sign, and it's one that many men overlook. Have you ever finished talking to a woman only for her to message you a few minutes later about something that really didn't need another conversation? Maybe she sends you a funny video. Maybe she asks a question she could have answered herself. Or she suddenly remembers one tiny thing you talked about earlier. At first, you might think she's just being nice, and maybe she is, but what if it keeps happening? Think about it for a second. People usually make time for the conversations they enjoy. If she keeps finding little reasons to talk to you, there's a good chance she enjoys your company. Now, I'm not saying every message means she's interested. Some people are naturally friendly, but here's where it gets interesting. Does the conversation always seem to die, or does she keep bringing it back to life? Imagine this. You reply to her message, and just when the conversation seems to be ending, she asks another question. Or she brings up something funny that happened during her day, or she says, by the way, I wanted to ask you something. She could have ended the conversation. Instead, she gives it another chance to continue. Why? Because she enjoys talking to you, and when someone enjoys talking to you, that's usually a good sign. Here's another thing to watch for. Does she remember little details about you? Maybe she asks how your interview went, or she remembers the name of your favorite football team, or she follows up on something you mentioned days ago. Those little things matter. People don't usually remember details about someone they're not interested in getting to know. Now, does this automatically mean she's waiting for you to make the first move? Not necessarily, but when you combine this with several other signs we're going to discuss, the picture starts becoming much clearer. And the next sign is one that many men completely miss, even when it's happening right in front of them. Have you ever noticed that some women always seem to have a reason to be around you? Maybe it's at work, maybe it's in church, maybe it's at school or somewhere you both spend time. At first, you might think it's probably just a coincidence, and sometimes it really is. But what if those coincidences keep happening? Let's say you're standing alone after an event. Out of everyone there, she walks over and starts talking to you. Or maybe she notices you're leaving and says, "You're going already?" Now, she didn't have to say that. She could have simply smiled and gone her way. Instead, she created another moment for the two of you to connect. Have you ever experienced something like that? And here's another example. You're in a group conversation. There are several people talking, but somehow she keeps directing her questions to you. She laughs at your comments. She asks what you think. It's almost like she's making sure you're part of the conversation. Now, don't misunderstand me. That doesn't automatically mean she's in love with you, but it could mean she's comfortable around you. And comfort is often where attraction begins. Think about your own life. Do you usually spend extra time around people you don't enjoy being with? Probably not. Most of us naturally move toward people who make us feel relaxed, understood, and happy. Women are no different. So she's consistently creating opportunities to spend time with you. Don't ignore it. It may be her quiet way of saying, I enjoy being around you. And believe me, that's a much stronger sign than many men realize. But here's the interesting part. Sometimes she won't just make time for you. She'll actually start dropping little hints to see if you're paying attention. Let's talk about that next. Have you ever had a conversation with a woman and walked away thinking, was she trying to tell me something? And then hours later, you're replaying the whole conversation in your head. Maybe I missed the sign. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. Not every woman will come right out and say, I like you. Ask me out. And some will, but many won't. Instead, they leave little hints and hope you notice them. For example, she might casually ask, so, are you seeing anyone? Now, think about that for a second. Could she be asking out of simple curiosity? And of course, but if she starts asking questions about your relationship status, what kind of woman you like, or whether you've ever thought about settling down, she may be trying to find out if there's room for her in your life. Here's another one. Have you ever noticed her joking about the two of you? Maybe she says something like, people are going to think we're together. Or someone teases both of you, and instead of looking uncomfortable, she laughs and keeps the conversation going. Those moments are worth paying attention to. Now, let me be clear. Don't take one joke and start planning your wedding. That's not what we're saying. Remember what we talked about earlier? Don't focus on one sign. Look for a pattern. If she's asking personal questions, teasing you, enjoying your company, and finding reasons to keep talking to you, those little pieces start fitting together. And here's what I've learned. Sometimes a woman isn't waiting for the perfect man. She's simply waiting for the right moment and hoping you'll have the confidence to take it. Now, the next sign is one of the easiest to recognize, yet many men still overlook it. Let's talk about it. Have you ever been talking to a woman and for some reason she always ends up standing right next to you? I'm not talking about a crowded room where there's nowhere else to stand. I mean, she actually has other places she could be, but somehow she's beside you. Have you ever noticed that? Now, don't rush to conclusions. I'm not saying she's already in love with you, but let me ask you this. When you're around people you don't really enjoy, do you look for excuses to stay close to them? Probably not. Most of us naturally move closer to people we feel comfortable with. Women do the same thing. Maybe you're both leaving church, and instead of walking with everyone else, she slows down so the two of you can talk. Or maybe you're at work, and she comes over with a question that honestly could have been answered by someone else. Have you ever had that happen? Now, one incident doesn't prove anything, but if it keeps happening, don't ignore it. Sometimes she's not trying to send you a big, obvious signal. Sometimes she's simply creating more opportunities to be around you. And if she's doing that while also keeping conversations going, remembering little things about you, and asking personal questions, well, the picture is starting to become much clearer, isn't it? Now, there's another sign that's even harder to ignore because it involves the one thing nobody can replace: time. Can I ask you another question? Have you ever met someone who always says they're busy, but somehow they're never too busy for you? Think about that for a second. We all have 24 hours in a day. We all have work, family, responsibilities, and things competing for our attention. Yet somehow there are certain people we always find time for. Why? Because they're important to us. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever texted her expecting a reply hours later, only for her to respond almost immediately? Or maybe you asked if she was free, fully expecting her to say no. Instead, she says, I can make some time. Have you ever stopped to think about what that might mean? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying every quick reply means she's interested. Some people are naturally fast at replying, but what if she keeps making room for you? What if she's the one saying, let me know when you're free? Or we should do that sometime. Or even, I was hoping I'd see you today. Those aren't just random words, and they're little invitations. She's making it easier for you to spend time together. And here's something I've noticed. When someone genuinely enjoys your company, spending time with you doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like a break from everything else. So instead of asking yourself, is she too busy for me? Maybe ask a different question. When she does have free time, does she choose to spend some of it with me? Because that answer can tell you a lot. And if you've noticed this sign along with the others we've talked about today, well, ask, you might be closer to your answer than you think. But there's one final sign that quietly says more than all the others combined. And it's the perfect way to end this discussion. Can I ask you one last question? Have you ever been talking to a woman and she says something that makes you stop and think, wait, did she just picture me in her future? I'm not talking about marriage. I'm talking about the little things. Maybe she says you'd really enjoy this restaurant. We should go there one day. Or she tells you about an event happening next month and says, you should come with me. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but think about it. When you're not interested in someone, do you usually imagine doing things with them weeks from now? Probably not. Most of us naturally picture the future with people we enjoy having in our lives. Now, let me ask you this. Has she ever asked what your plans are for the weekend or what you're doing during the holidays? At first, it sounds like ordinary conversation, and sometimes it is. But what if she follows it up with something like, maybe we could do something together? That's different, isn't it? And she's no longer talking about today. She's talking about spending time with you in the future. And here's something I've noticed. Women don't always say, I want you to ask me out. Sometimes they simply leave the door open, hoping you'll be confident enough to walk through it. Now, before you get too excited, remember everything we've said in this video. Don't build your confidence on one sign. Look at the whole picture. If she's making time for you, keeping conversations alive, finding reasons to be around you, and now she's talking about future plans with you, well, maybe she's been giving you an answer all along. You just didn't recognize it. So let's wrap this up, because there's one final thought I want to leave you with before this discussion ends.